But
yeah. And if you've chosen the generic Office products, so Office automation products, not just Microsoft products, but any of them, as the thing that you're going to use, you need to do all the things we're talking about to make it work, because people are just doing stuff random and different. You spend a bunch of money onto technology and you aren't getting the value out of it. You implemented something, somebody thought it was really cool, but nobody's actually using it. Doing that creates chaos.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Make Others Successful, a podcast about stories, strategies, and insights for creating a modern workplace at your company. So let's start around this topic. Where does this topic come from? Why is it even a thing that we have on a list to talk about? What have we seen in the past that is kind of triggering this conversation?
I would say it's two different things. Number one, some organizations, kind of two different camps. Some organizations view all of the modernization of what they do as an IT effort, and it's IT driven. And it's IT responding to customer, or end user demands. And in that world, from our perspective and what we look at a modern workplace and what it means to be that, it just doesn't count, right? Like if you're doing it that way, and we can get into the reasons why, but that's kind of one area. And the other is someone who has maybe done a big revamp of their technology stack, and maybe has done a bunch of human design and focusing on end users and all of this stuff to make a great piece of technology 15 years ago, and hasn't really done very much since.
I think for me, I would sum all of those scenarios up into something like, yeah, we're using technology, and there was or was not at some point in time a declared why for whatever the thing was or the things were. And it's just a simple fact of the matter. You start to use some tools, you get used to them. If you stop remembering the why every day and declaring new whys for new tools, right, then you're just a user of the tools, right? You're not actually a modern workplace. You're not using, let's say, Teams strategically, right? Like, do you use Teams? Yes, we use Teams. Why do you use it? What does it do for you? What results is it producing? If you're not paying attention to those things, you're not a modern workplace.
I'm going to leave a couple resources here, because you made me remember that I wrote a blog about aligning change to your business goals.
Yep.
And 3 different methods that you can use in order to just get something out on paper and try to articulate things. We'll leave that in the show notes. And then I also realized we have a scorecard, which you may have seen promoted other places, which sort of grades you on how modern is your workplace.
Yep.
That breaks this down into 20 questions, and you can get
an outcome,
a
score,
a grade. Yep, we'll grade you. All that stuff just kind of gives context to all these different areas that we're talking about. So we'll leave that in the show notes as well.
If you have internal IT staff, they're oftentimes seen as a cost to the business, not a solution or a critical component of a business. And if you're using a managed service provider, you haven't valued IT enough to even have it be someone that's in your business, right? You've said, I'm going to use somebody else, right? Which, to be clear, can work and can be just fine. There's not necessarily anything wrong with that. However,
it's way easier to look at that as a cost, though. It's someone else. We just pay them.
It's not just looking at a cost. The IT managed service provider is looking at it as, how can I use the least amount of money to deliver on the thing that I'm delivering, right?
A bad one, sure.
I mean, most of them are going to do that, right?
Because they're trying to beat the competition.
For good reason, because it's a lot of times it's viewed as a commodity, right?
If there's any MSPs listening, I'm sorry.
What's that? Yeah.
They know it. I
want to be really clear. Good MSPs, average MSPs are going to try to do things for their customer, but we've had lots of MSPs that come to us and say, we've given them this piece of technology. They're asking for how to use it, what to do, how to make it the best in their business. We don't do that. Mm-hmm. That's not what, they think that that's what we do, but that's not what we're getting paid to do.
Yeah.
And it's the truth. The expectation about what an MSP is providing, a managed service provider is providing to your business, is oftentimes a little bit askew, right? Like they're not set up to do strategic projects necessarily.
Right.
Many MSPs have strategic project components and parts of their organization and will hand it off to that other group. But oftentimes, honestly, many of those don't deal in the, office automation, business process improvement spaces. They
Right.
deal with custom dev, or they deal with, they're not, or they deal in big migration projects for a particular technology, or they deal with, and it's way more IT focused.
And I feel like the saddest part about that is the organization they're working with is going through change. What better time to work on that strategy side of it too? Because if you just roll through with, here's your new accounts, go ahead, see you later, like they're going to have to find their own new work processes effectively on their own. And then they're going to figure out it doesn't work later.
That is the biggest problem with the specific technology stack that we deal with all the time.
Yeah.
So if you are dealing with, different technologies differently, right? If you're dealing with a particular, let's say it's a banking intranet solution, right? If I'm a bank and I've decided to use this tool, the chances of the tool doing enough of the stuff that I really want for it to kind of help out without a lot of strategy and figuring it out is probably pretty good, because it's targeted at my market space and it's built around my vertical's needs, right? And in that scenario, it can work really well. Office 365 and the Microsoft stack can do lots of things. It can do lots of things pretty well. But at its core, it does everything. And so then it does nothing, right?
You see that in Microsoft products too.
A SharePoint site is like a website. I can do all sorts of stuff with it.
Yeah.
What do you really want to do with it? It's up to you as the user to figure it out. And so in that world, when you're dealing about those products, and it's just not just Microsoft products, you can look at the Google stack, you can look at lots of different spaces, and they have similar things where, cool, you have this tool. How do I use it to solve my business problem?
Well, that's
right?
one of the things we talked about that in one of our early podcasts too, like buying something off the shelf versus building your own versus what were the options there? And those are things that you should be thinking about strategically from a technology standpoint, not just assuming you're going to buy off the shelf or assuming that your MSP might go build it for you somehow. But yeah.
And if you've chosen the generic Office products, so Office automation products, not just Microsoft products, but any of them, as the thing that you're going to use, you're like, either doesn't exist one in the marketplace, or the ones in the marketplace aren't right, or they cost too much money, or whatever. That's fine. You need to do all the things we're talking about to make it work, because the alternative is exactly what you were talking about, Mitch, which is great. We want to use SharePoint. We're using SharePoint. SharePoint's the best thing in the world. Or Teams is the best thing in the world. Unless you articulate exactly how Teams should be used for your business, it is up to every single individual user to figure out how that tool fits in their day. And that is one of the biggest challenges, because doing that creates chaos, and it creates different people doing different things all the time, people having different outcomes. One person might love it and excited and it's amazing. Somebody else might hate it and I don't ever want to use it. Somebody else might be, it's okay, but I don't understand how it fits, right?
You're teeing up a call out to Matt did a webinar recently about taming the Teams chaos.
I mean, in Teams in particular, we've talked about it a little bit. But I mean,
if you find yourself in that situation, that might be a good resource for you. I'm going to try to summarize this section as Microsoft has all these tools. This is in our ecosystem, right? Microsoft has all these tools. They aim themselves at the enterprise primarily.
Yep.
Try to serve the other areas too, but there's nuance to it all, and it's hard to serve all those different levels. And then we have managed service providers who try to enable people to have those tools, but probably don't have the know-how of teaching people how to use those tools. And then there's a disconnection from the strategy of the business of using those tools. And people think they need to just use training or get training in order to use those tools. And then it all just kind of falls flat.